Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of Spectator Mode. I am your host, JJ Piedra, Joshua Jeremiah, and I am joined once again by the man with many names, Keith, Mr. Frame Rates Matter, Keith, Shadow Haxer Missile, Mitchell. Did I get them all this time, Keith?
No, because you didn't say about to be dead because you ordered an expensive video card and didn't tell your wife.
You got to stop adding names, dude. This is becoming a podcast long thing.
That's gonna be my shtick. Every week I'm gonna add a different part of my name. I gotta start brainstorming what I want to call myself. But after this week I might be dead, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, apparently not. But just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna start keeping a list because this is gonna get pretty long.
I'm checking it twice.
Gonna find out if Keith is dead or not.
Oh, that's gonna happen.
And also joining us is the man from Australia himself, Mr. Carl Mice Smart. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Unlike Keith, who buys graphic cards and then gets killed by his wife, I get sent shit for free, and I just keep using it.
Hey, man, I sold a video card and a Funko in my PAX tickets to help buy this card.
You actually sold a Funko?
Yes.
These things actually sell?
Yeah, I had the New York Comic Con limited edition Future Trunks. People go crazy over Funkos. They go crazy over these things.
I'm still over here just like, I don't give a Funko.
Well, I don't either. That's why I'm selling them all.
Nendoroids are where it's at, people. Nendoroids. They're cute.
Only 4 times the price.
Exactly.
Yep. Prepare to spend $60 on something about 4 inches tall and probably worth about 5 cents if you were to break down the plastic.
You know what? We're going to work that into one of our upcoming toys on a Tuesday.
Yeah, might as well.
Nendoroids versus Funko Pops.
The ultimate battle. Speaking of ultimate battles, gentlemen, we got a new Pokemon game. Actually, we got 2 of them. Sword and Shield, as announced by the Nintendo Direct just a few days ago. And we got 3 brand new starter Pokemon. Of course, Team Score Bunny for the win.
Team Score Bunny.
Debate. So
There is no debate. It's Team Score Bunny.
Poor Sobble. He's never going to get picked because he's a water type. But you don't underestimate water types because if Mega Man Battle Network taught you anything, Aqua Style was the most OP form from back in the day. So water types do have their place. So Team Sobble out there, I got your back, even though I'm picking Score Bunny.
Score Bunny for the win. The hell of everybody else. I'm sorry.
Still no love for Grookey, unless Carl, are you picking Grookey?
No, I have no idea what I'm picking because I had to look at them all and I went, okay, yep, sure, I'll pick this thing at random, and then I'll go find something better when I start hunting.
Well,
I never stick with the starters. I'm sorry. There's always better things out there, especially when just about everything has like some sort of dual nature these days.
That's true. That's very true.
Well, again, you've also played Pokemon before. You see, Keith and I, we're kind of like Pokemon virgins over here. We have never really played a Pokemon game.
Virgin.
Yeah, so this is going to be...
So does that make me a Pokemon slut?
Yes, actually it does.
It does.
100%.
Damn
it. Pouring yourself out for Pokemon. Damn it, Carl.
I know our Nintendo team would probably cover this in great detail because they are pretty much Pokemon aficionados around here. But for Keith and I, it's going to be our first Pokemon game. It's actually a series I've been meaning to get into for quite a while. I just never really did so for reasons I can't even come up with. Just maybe because I'm lazy. I don't know. That's the best thing I could say. But it's always been something I've wanted to try out. I mean, I love RPGs, and then, Mega Man Battle Network is kind of like the Capcom version of Pokemon because instead of monsters, you're collecting battle chips, you're evolving Mega Man instead of evolving your Pokemon. It's kind of got that similar, but not yet similar, play style, or at least concept. So I wanted to give, Pokemon a try, and I figured instead of going back and trying to figure out what game I should start with and get recommendations from people, might as well just jump in with the newest ones that are coming out. I mean, kind of makes sense, right?
Right. That's my my chain of thought. I mean, I've never played a Pokemon game. I've always wanted to, like yourself, but I just never had the drive to do so. And now this is a brand new Pokemon coming out, developed ground up for the Switch, and it looks pretty good. I figured, you know what? This is my jumping point. This is where I'm going to finally start playing a series that has captivated millions upon gamers So I'm excited. And like we said, team score money because fire types are the best to me. Charizard, enough said. But everything that I read about the game so far seems really good. What little bit we saw looks amazing. And yeah, I really can't wait to get more information on the game.
Yeah, same here. And knowing Nintendo, we're probably going to get about 10 or 11 more directs between now and the end of 2019 dedicated to just nothing but Pokemon, because they know that's a pretty big seller for them. And I think
hope
it's
we
supposed
do.
to come out, late this year?
They said later this year.
They said late 2019. If tradition holds, it means it's going to be somewhere around about mid-November.
Yeah, I was thinking like that, or maybe just around for Christmas time when they can sell the hell out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just hope it's not along the same lines of like, let's go Pikachu and let's go Eevee. I picked that up on the Switch just because, like, hey, hype. And then I played it for about an hour and went, this is boring. It was just, I don't know why, it just something just felt missing from it. It didn't feel exactly like the core games, which I've been playing since, 1996. Fuck, I'm old. Like, when you're saying it's like, you didn't know where to start, that's the biggest problem. We're looking at, what are we looking at? Probably about 4, 7, 10, 13. We're looking at somewhere close to 30 odd games here. And that's including the remakes that have come out, because, Nintendo can't even help themselves and keep going down that route. A lot of people probably would have suggested to you before today to probably go back and play maybe Heart Gold and Soul Silver on the DS, as that would be the pinnacle of 2 generations of Pokemon.
Nintendo actually sent me a copy of Gold and Silver many, many, many years ago, or moons ago, I should say. I should probably dig those up.
If they're the original Game Boy carts, they're worth money.
Well, no, they gave me codes for it.
So
yes.
Heart Gold and Soul Silver then.
Should check
everything is codes these days.
Yeah, it is. But I've seen a lot of people say the same thing you just said about Let's Go Pokemon. That it was somewhat disappointing. Now, wasn't that based on the original Pokemon to an extent?
Yeah,
I didn't follow whatsoever, so I don't know.
So the way when it was based around the original, the red, blue, green, yellow dynamic, which was Generation 1 Pokemon, but it was more closely related to Pokemon Go than anything else, because of the way you caught them was the exact same. It was literally pulled out of the Pokemon Go game and then put into the mainline games, and there wasn't really much in the way of battling. At least what I could play. I can't remember half of it that I even played now. It's like that boring to me. But it's interesting. Like, I've heard little bits and pieces come out since the Nintendo Direct, and this will be the third game where they've decided to actually make a specific location. Like,
the location looked beautiful too.
X and Y was based around Paris and sort of Europe style area, because they had all the fashion and all that type of stuff. Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which were the next mainline follow-ups, they were mainly around like your Fiji Islands type thing. Supposedly this one's going to be more sort of UK based and Scotland based. So does that mean we're getting Pokemon Haggis?
I heard Haggis is nasty.
There's going to be a new
Pikachu
Pokemon called Hagasaur. Calling it right now. And he's going to evolve into
Pikachu stuffed inside of a Raichu stuffed inside of a Pichu.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, I am looking forward to it.
The last thing I got to ask, guys, like this, since we've always had this thing of there's always either a third version or a follow-up lately. You had originally you had Red and Blue, which followed up by Yellow, Gold and Silver, which was followed up by Crystal, Ruby, Sapphire, which was then followed up by Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, which had Platinum, Black and White had Black 2 and White 2, in the most boring naming convention ever. Sun and Moon had Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. What do you reckon we're getting as a follow-up to Sword and Shield? What weapons are we getting?
Gun. Definitely gun.
Guns.
Actually, that was a meme on Twitter I saw. It's like someone was really quick to work up the third logo, basically Pokemon gun, and I had a good laugh at that. And of course, there's also many other memes, like we have Pokemon Sword Art Online versus Pokemon Rising of the Shield Hero, because we have to make that anime comparison.
Oh boy.
Oh, speaking quickly of anime comparisons, I don't know if you guys ever really... Did you guys watch the TV series at all, or at least the movies?
I watched the first couple of seasons of the original one. I have not watched anything in the past 2-3 years.
When I was a youngin', I actually watched a little bit of Digimon, and I know it's kind of
Digimon's awesome.
But
Digimon's awesome.
Okay, at least someone was going to get my back on that. I was expecting backlash for saying that.
Tamers wasn't that good, but anyway, it's another subject. Because I was going to say, because recently, just to keep on the Pokemon news, we had the first trailer released for the Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution movie, which is basically a retelling of Mewtwo Strikes Back, which is the first ever Pokemon movie, except this time it's done in CG.
Oh no!
Bod say
No.
Jay.
I already hear that in the back of my head. I was like, oh no!
Like, what are we talking about? We're talking about, like, I don't know, something out of Ufotable style CG, or are we talking full on Berserk 2017 CG?
Oh, that's a hard comparison, actually. I don't know, I might try and jibber jabber a bit while you guys actually take a quick peek.
Wait, what was that last piece?
Okay.
I didn't hear you. You broke up.
He got the trailer, so
Okay.
I guess we'll take a look at the CG for ourselves here and have a little bit of a reaction while Carl can kind of explain it to the best of his ability.
Oh boy. All right.
It's definitely one of those ones where it's like the CG and like backgrounds and stuff like that looks absolutely phenomenal. Then you see the Pokemon, and in some shots, like the Pokemon actually look really good. At least it looks a lot better than Detective Pikachu. But
it doesn't look too bad.
Then you see some of the humans. Wait until you actually get a really good shot of Ash, Misty, and Brock, and you sit there and you go, "What the fuck?" It's definitely
Brock is all jacked up.
It is definitely no Oscar-winning, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse style level, but for an all CG retelling of, and I'm guessing they're probably going to change little bits and pieces just to keep it a little bit fresher and in line with modern lore with the characters and whatnot. It doesn't seem too bad of a thing, but yeah, it's really weird. Like for some of the CGI, I actually like it, but others I'm like, oh my god, it's terrible. But then again, as I said, at least it's not as bad as Detective Pikachu
Or the new Sonic movie.
It
I
kind of
haven't
reminds
seen
me
any of that, and I don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want to. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles CG movie.
I mean, I'm looking at it. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
It's not good either, but it's not
Exactly.
bad.
Exactly.
yeah,
It's
I
not
mean-
too bad, but
It's okay. It's serviceable. But
So
Moving
is this
on,
one you
because-
might actually watch there, Josh, being Mr. like snobby anime person?
no, not a chance. But speaking of things you want to collect all of, Hearthstone has announced the Year of the Dragon, which is going to be starting this April with the first expansion of 2019. And with the Year of the Dragon, they do a whole bunch of stuff to help improve the game, most of which is by Hall of Faming some basic and classic cards, which will kind of rebalance some of the way the decks are played. Mainly because every time Standard comes around, it's comprised of basic and classic cards, which released when Hearthstone first came out, last year's expansions, and this year's expansions. So that's what you always get in Standard, but sometimes they're, I guess, inhibited from making new cards and new expansions because some of the classic cards were just so powerful that it could actually break the game. So they chose 3 cards from the classic set And for the first time ever, they are rotating out 6 additional cards from 2018, which are supposed to be in standard through next year. Because, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But the 3 cards that are rotating out are Naturalized for the Druid. That's the 1 mana destroy a minion, and your opponent draws 2 cards. Druid has not been built to be a class that is supposed to have hard removal. They're supposed to be about mana generation, which makes no sense because they nerfed Wild Growth and Nourish, which were their mana generators to begin with. So they really wanted to, I guess, explore in a new expansion some other ways for Druids to have removal, so they got rid of Naturalized and shifted over to Wild. For Warlock, Doomguard is going into the Hall of Fame, so yeah, no more cube block shenanigans, but I think Carnivorous Cube's rotating out anyway, if I'm not mistaken, so that doesn't matter. But other decks, such as Zoo, or any type of demon manipulation decks, will always abuse Doomguard, and they want to kind of prevent that from happening again in the future. So that's gone. And then the third one for Paladin is Divine Favor. That is the 3 mana draw cards until you have as many as your opponent. And this was a huge staple in a deck like Odd Paladin, where you just basically throw down as much as you can, or even just typical aggro Paladin. You empty your hand, then you just cast a Divine Favor and get your entire hand back. And now your opponent's just sitting there playing cards, which is like, oh god, please don't kill me this turn type of cards. And you just get crushed anyway because of Divine Favor. So that's getting rotated out. So those are 3 basic cards going to the Hall of Fame. You'll only be able to play those in Wild. But the biggest shock to everyone was the 2 cards which came out in the Witchwood, which is the first expansion of last year, Baku the Moon Eater and Gen Greymane. These 2 cards are legendary cards. They are the ones solely responsible for the odd and even decks, because Baku is at the start of the game. If you only have odd cost cards in your whole deck, you basically upgrade your hero power, which doubles the effect of your hero power. Again, Greymane's the opposite. If you only have even cards in your deck, then you lower your hero cost or hero power cost of 1. And Odd Paladin became one of the most played decks because of it. Even Paladin was right behind it. And then, of course, there was Odd Rogue. And those were the 3 decks you always ran into on ladder. And they were so powerful that the other 2 expansions that released in 2018 didn't even get played because all the decks that were made in the Witchwood just continued out all throughout last year. And it was always Odd Paladin, Even Paladin, and Odd Rogue at the top. So Blizzard decided they're not going to have any more odd and even decks. So these cards were supposed to rotate out in 2020. They are now rotating out immediately with the first expansion. And of course, the other 4 cards are Gloomstag for the Druid, Black Cat for the Mage, Glittermoth for the Priest, and Merkspark Eel for the Shaman. Why are those rotating out? Because all those are based on even and odd decks. They require them in order to actually play. So without Baku and Gen in the standard rotation, they are essentially DOA cards. They are virtually unplayable in standard, so they might as well just shift them over to Wild. So big changes there, which means come April, we are guaranteed an all-new, brand-new meta, and it's going to be pretty exciting. Other new things they're doing is a brand new deck builder. So if you don't know how to build a deck, you basically push a button and Blizzard will fill your deck with 30 cards. It's pretty stupid, but they're going to rework the AI on it. So essentially you don't have to net deck anymore, because they're basically saying that they're going to have an algorithm which will basically give you the best cards from that expansion if you have them in your collection, and build a deck with it. So you don't have to net deck anymore.
That seems very
pretty
boring.
Interesting.
That sounds boring, though, isn't it? Does it take out the fun and the experimentation and learning of the game?
Yeah, it does. But if you've ever played any of the PvE adventures in Hearthstone, you'll know that Blizzard's AI is dumber than a box of dead wet rats. So I have a feeling this is going to backfire, and we're going to get some of the most hilarious meme decks ever created with that deck builder. Also,
my quick question with this, with this, they're calling it Year of the Dragon.
Yes,
even though technically this is the Chinese Year of the Ball. Does this actually have anything to do with dragons?
That's what we don't know. I mean, there's 3 expansions every year, and they did not announce what the new expansion is going to be for April. But from the graphics, we can only guess the first one's going to have to deal with the Kirin Tor and Dalaran, which has been heavily speculated based on the artwork here. And of course, the Kirin Tor has the Six as the ruling council, and one of the members of the Six is the Blue Dragon Calicos, so I guess that ties in. The second one, we're not really sure. Some people are guessing Ulduar because of the way the blue particles look in the iris there. It kind of looks like a constellation, but the outer rim kind of looks like Nazjatar. Either one, I have no idea what has to do with dragons, because there was no dragons in either, Underwater City or in Ulduar at all. And the third one definitely looks like possibly the Bronze Dragonflight itself. So those are all speculation. I mean, if we're just going off the Year of the Dragon theme, that's our best guess. But then again, we are currently wrapping up the Year of the Raven, and there was hardly any Raven cards in the last 3 expansions. So, I guess they just name it, and it doesn't really have to be themed after the year. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So other things that they're adding to the game, fireside gatherings. This is actually really cool. So what a fireside gathering is essentially you get 3 or more people on the same internet connection. You can set up a private little room for yourselves, and you can basically play Hearthstone against each other. It's kind of like Friday Night Magic, except through internet. What they're doing is they experimented with this last year, where every time an expansion comes out, you can go to a public fireside gathering that's sponsored by Blizzard. You can open your expansion packs early, and you actually play with the new cards early. They're now making it that anybody can actually create a private fireside gathering during the pre-release period and open your packs and play with the new cards early. You don't have to go to a public event. You can actually do this right here in the comfort of your own home, granted if you have enough people to do so. So I thought that was actually really awesome. I know you commented on that, Keith, in our Discord chat about how you thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, because I've always watched, and there was an area around here that they were actually doing one of the gatherings. I was like, oh, that's really cool. If I had played the game still, I probably would have went to that. But I like the idea that if you have a large amount of people, friends, associates, even strangers that are interested in Hearthstone, and you can get them all together in one location, and Blizzard will officially acknowledge you and let you do that in your home or a bar or a comic book shop or wherever. That's actually really cool. And I think it's a good way to get some exposure out there for the game, as well as like having things like introducing the game to people who've never played it before or people that have a passing interest in the game. That's good exposure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the more people who know about Hearthstone, because, obviously 100 million players isn't enough. I mean, we need to get that number higher, but still, the more people become aware of Hearthstone, the bigger the community becomes, and the more fun it becomes to play against other players and wreck their ass because they're noobs. But the other thing and the last thing I want to talk about here for Year of the Dragon, though, is something that's a little bit controversial. Some people are not really keen on this idea. They're kind of combining the dungeon run mode that they've made available for free over the past 3 expansions with the old model of adventuring. So if you played the old miniature expansions like Curse of Naxxramas and Blackrock Mountain, League of Explorers, you're used to going in and doing these wings every week that unlock. You could pay 700 gold in game to unlock a wing, or you pay $20 to unlock the entire adventure. Where they're kind of going back to that paid business model on top of having it be a dungeon run, but they're promising more heroes that you can unlock, more hero powers, more chances at making different decks. You're not really stuck with the same deck per each hero or the same choices per each hero now. So they're kind of giving you more options. And of course, since you're now paying for it, they're upping the rewards by giving you 15 packs from the expansion that it's going to be introduced in. So whatever expansion 1 is, that adventure mode is going to give you 15 packs for completing it, plus a classic golden pack, which gives you basic and classic cards, and all 5 cards are guaranteed to be golden. So you get basically 16 packs for completing this, as well as a card back, and I don't know if they're going to throw in anything else for that, but some actual real rewards rather than going through and getting a check mark like you do now with the dungeon run. So they have over 75 bosses planned for the first one. They got tons and tons of heroes planned. I think it's 27 different hero powers you can actually have in this. So there's a lot of cool content they're doing for it. But the fact that the last 3 expansions had free dungeon runs and now they're monetizing it on top of the cost of the expansion, and I don't know, with the whole thing about Activision trying to find more profit out of Blizzard's games, this kind of seems like an Activision move.
Definitely sounds like flooding the market to me. Jesus, 75 bosses and 16 packs for the golden packs, and wow, it sounds like a devalue there.
Yeah, this kind of just like flows out from the whole discussion we had in our first show about Activision Blizzard. And that's the first thing I thought of. I didn't really think of, oh, cool, we're getting value for $20. And I didn't think about that. I'm like, so now you're telling me I'm going to have to pre-order an expansion, which there's probably be 2 versions of. There's probably like the $50 version and like the $70 version, and you get whatever for each. And now I got to pay another additional $20 a month later when this launches. Like, yeah, this sounds like microtransactions out the ass. And I don't know. It just seems... I guess we're just spoiled for the fact that the dungeon runs were free for so long that now we actually have to pay for, this kind of content, which came with the expansion before. So I don't know. Maybe Blizzard might change their stance if enough people complain, but then again, Activision's probably like, ignore them, charge them anyway.
Give us the money. We don't care about your quantity or quality. We just want the money.
Yeah, pretty much.
Give us the monies.
Give us the monies.
Yeah, so Keith, speaking of giving us some stuff, you gave us a review of Dead or Alive 6, haven't you?
I did. So I have not always been the biggest fan of Dead or Alive. I played it way back in the day on the Sega Saturn, a little bit more on the PlayStation and Xbox. I completely skipped 4. I played a little bit of 5. And we were lucky enough to get access to the review of Dead or Alive 6, which I thought was actually a really decent fighter. It's far from being a technical fighter. It's not a virtual fighter at all. It's more of an in-between between Tekken and virtual fighter, to the fact that it's still a lot of fast-paced action. Some of the moves are very over the top. The whole system, what they use for reversals, is still very abusable, that people abuse the hell out of it. And it's still very, very sexualized, even though Team Ninja did state that they were going to try and tone that down. Dead or Alive is known for...
Then they backflipped and said, screw it.
Yeah, I mean, Dead or Alive is known for its sexual overtones. That's just how the game is. And going into the game, it's either you know about this and you don't care, or you're going to be offended about this and you don't play the game, which is a shame, because even though they went back on the word, it's not as bad as it was back then. I'm like, I'll give you a good example, like the jiggle physics. Everybody knows about the game. It's still in the game, and some of the way that some of these females' breasts move, and it's like, I don't think breasts actually move like that. That's really, really weird, which is going to be a shame, because, like I said, the game is a lot of fun. The fighting is a lot of fun. They put in a couple new features, the Fatal Rush, which is pretty much you tap the special move and it will do an auto combo if you have 1 bar, or if you have 2 bars, it'll keep doing it. And then at the end, it'll do what's called a break blow, which does a little more extra damage and knocks the person down. You got the Fatal Reversal, which uses 1 bar, where you can reverse any move. High, low, medium, it doesn't matter where it's coming, you can reverse it for the use of 1 meter, or 1 bar of the meter. Stages are always like they were back then. They're crazy. They got a lot of things going on, like flames or a kraken that'll pick you up if you knock into them. You got one arena where you're fighting in a crowd, and if you get knocked into the crowd, they'll pick you up and throw you right back in, which sets you up for a big combo by the other person. But if you check out our review at Outerhaven, you'll see what I liked about the game, what I didn't like about the game. But I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of silly fun. It's a good fighting game if you're not very serious about fighting games. If you like games like Tekken, you're going to enjoy it as well. But again, it's not very technical, but damn if it's not fun. It's easily better than Dead or Alive 5. I've said it is the best Dead or Alive game that I played, period. Now there is a downside. There's a downside. Koei Tecmo is notorious for selling DLC. I think for Dead or Alive 5, the amount of DLC was up in the 200s. They're selling DLC. Say again?
Keep going.
I didn't buy it.
The DLC was probably close to about $300 to $400 by the time they ended it. And that's US dollars, not Australian dollars.
That's ridiculous.
For Australia, it was nearly $700 worth of DLC.
That is crazy. But the thing is, people bought that. People bought the DLC, and Koei Tecmo was like, you know what? We're going to keep doing it. So it carried over to this one. The season pass is available right now, and it's $92. Well, it's $93. It's $92.99, which is kind of silly. You know, you get a bunch of costumes. You get Nai Tengu's wrestling outfit and a couple other things. But the problem is people were going like, hey, this is a DLC that's $93. Why is Koei Tecmo doing this when, and this is a big part of my issue with the game, when they couldn't get the online lobbies in the game on time for launch? Which I agree with. Online lobbies should have been in the game. It's a fighting game, an online fighting game, and there are no lobbies. They did say that they were going to be available day one patch, and then they came back 2 days later and said, oh, they're coming out in March. We just don't know when. So Dead or Alive 6 is online right now, but the online mode is very bare bones, which is not very fun. Outside of that, though, getting back to the DLC, this is what people are complaining. Why can't we get this, but you're giving us all this DLC? Now, I've come to the piece that companies are out to make money, because companies are out to make money, and they will do it any way they can. And selling DLC is a quick buck. They know people will buy costumes. See Fortnite, people will buy costumes. Doesn't matter. And they'll get some cool, quick cash, and they'll do whatever they need to do. The problem is, and there's a lot of people in that big, I won't say game journalism, but people that are in the gaming scene that are making a big deal out of this because they're saying, oh, DLC is evil. DLC is bad. Why are they doing this? And it's like, in the end of the day, nobody's twisting your arm. Nobody's putting a gun to your head. Nobody's telling you to buy this DLC. You're buying it because you want to buy it. I'm not going to tell you not to go buy the DLC. If you want to go buy it, do it. Go ahead and do it. It's your money. I don't care. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to support this kind of business. But you shouldn't get on your soapbox and get mad at companies, all companies, because they want to sell DLC. It brings in money, quick money, easy money that may or may not help that company stay afloat. We don't know what kind of dire straits Koei Tecmo is in. We have no idea. I don't know anything about them. I'm not going to pretend that I know how much money they're bringing in, their financial reports, et cetera, et cetera. I do know that half the games they bring out in the year are really crap. With the exception of Dead or Alive and Neo, they haven't really put out a game that was worth talking about in quite some time. So maybe this is their way of staying afloat. Because I can tell you, for the 5 people that are complaining about DLC, there's probably 50 people buying it because the costumes are like, oh, I'm going to buy this because this costume looks really good on that girl's ass. And that's Dead or Alive. I don't know what to say. Yeah, but in short, yeah, DLC, stop complaining. Don't buy it if you don't like it.
Well, the thing about DLC is, I mean, I have my opinion on it. I honestly think that DLC in the beginning, when internet was starting to become prevalent in games, I thought it was a good idea because now you can actually offer true DLC to the consumers, i.e. like an expansion pack to a game that I could see paying for. But the thing that left a sour taste in my mouth is when they started adding things like new characters and costumes and weapon skins and all these other cosmetic things that are microtransacting to hell and back, that it really gave DLC a bad name. And I've seen people like make jokes about it. It's like, oh, you're going to get DLC to video game. You have to pay 99 cents for the start button. You got to pay another 99 cents to get into the options menu, and so forth and so forth. And it's because we were used to growing up at a time where DLC didn't exist because there was no internet. I mean, yeah, there's the famous argument for Street Fighter 2 charging you $50 every time a new version came out because that's how they had to do it. But that was pretty much the one and only example we could think of outside of maybe in a limited capacity Mortal Kombat 3. But when you wanted a new character, if you wanted a new skin, if you wanted a new weapon, you played the game and you unlocked it. Everything you paid your $50 for back then, because that's how much games cost, not $60, you got it. You had to work for it, but you got it. So now DLC is here because of the internet and obviously day one patches and all that other bullshit I don't want to get into. And now people are starting to feel like they're getting their wallets drained for stuff they got for free just for buying the game in the past. Now, of course, this new generation of gamers who never owned an NES or Super NES or anything that was pre-internet is not going to really feel that sting. They're just going to know, oh, hey, if I want this cool character skin, I got to pay 99 cents for it. Or maybe I get the $30, yearly pass and I get it for free later on, quote unquote. It's that mentality that's really giving DLC a bad rap. But on the flip side, because I went to school for game design and I went through the whole process and I looked at the business side of things, I understand why it's a necessary evil these days. And it is kind of a cool way to market your game to generate more money because of the increasing cost it takes to develop a game. Back then, when you're making an NES game on 8-bit or 16-bit, you're maybe spending a couple $1,000s on a small team to render sprites for you in some chiptunes. Now you've got 3D artists, you have, programmers for the engine of the game, programmers for the lighting, programmers for the music, programmers for pretty much everything you want to do. You have animators, you have a huge team working on these big titles, and they're costing companies hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I don't know what these titles today cost, but I do remember the original Destiny, which was put out by Bungie, was said to cost $220 million to make. That means they'd have to sell a lot of $60 versions of the game, but what helps, recoup that revenue it took to spend to make that game is DLC. So yeah, you may look at it from a frustrating point of view, like, why do I have to pay 99 cents or $5 here or $10 there for something when I used to get it for free?
Crap.
But
I didn't mean to stop you there. I'm stopping you because I looked it up for you. So according to this, it costs Activision and Bungie $500 million to develop and promote Destiny.
Yep, there you go. $500 million for one video game.
That is ridiculous.
So let me give you some basic economics 101 for all you kids out there who hate DLC. If you spent $500 million on one video game and you don't make that back, guess what? The lights are going to turn off. You don't make video games anymore, and you got to go get another job because you won't have one. That is why DLC exists as evil as it is. So while we mope and groan, and personally, I do have problems with the way they do DLC, but from the flip side of things, on the degree business side of things, I understand why it's there. And unfortunately, if you want DLC to disappear, well, get ready for a price hike on software. You might be paying $100 for a base game and not the collector's edition if they want to make their money back, if that were the case. Something's going to give somewhere.
Yeah, and many times people won't do it, which is the other side of things, the other ugly side of things. They'll be like, I'm just going to wait till it gets cheaper. That doesn't help the companies at all.
Or they wait to get some copies in a GameStop and go buy it used, in which the profit goes mainly to GameStop and not the developer.
Yeah, that's another argument and another topic that people talked about for a while. I think GameStop in itself is going away anyway, so that won't be a thing much longer.
They tried to sell the company, but
nobody wanted it.
Couldn't find anybody.
Nobody wanted it. Like, yeah, we don't want this. But yeah, that was just my 2 cents on DLC. I mean, like you said, I'm not opposed to it. I think when done right, it is amazing. There have been a ton of games that have given us DLC for free levels and free character skins and weapons for no reason. Like Titanfall 2 was a good example. Respawn was like, everything that comes out from this game, everything that we release after the game is sold, is free. And they did an amazing job. They gave us extra mats for online mode, a couple other things, and it was great. So when done properly, DLC is amazing. But the problem is
Tekken 7 Season 1.
We had to pay for that, though.
Well, it's still DLC. Even though
that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
But the thing is, you take a look at what you got in the first pack. You got 3 brand new characters plus a new game mode.
Yeah, Tekken Bowl.
Which made it worth. But then you go and take a look at a direct competition like Street Fighter, who cut characters only to bring them back in as DLC. Same thing that it looks like Mortal Kombat 11 might be doing as well.
But I don't have a problem with that to an extent because again,
I
that's
do.
done right.
I no, that's done wrong. You don't
When you
cut
introduce new
content
characters,
to
it's wrong?
reintroduce.
Yeah.
No, when you cut content to introduce it later on as DLC, that's wrong.
No, I have a problem with that. No, I like what Tekken does.
If you're doing, if you do like Tekken did, and you got like brand new characters, new game modes, no problems. Love it. We'll support it up. Support it here. Have my fucking money. Especially when it's decently priced. Go fuck yourself, Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Yeah.
That shit is still 55 Australian dollars right now. Still. And it's been like nearly 2 years since that game came out. Fuck that shit.
Has it been? Wow.
Nearly. But it's like, that's the thing. It's like, I understand, and I'm right with Josh the entire way. You know, I understand the economics behind it, the business behind it. And, you know, and at the end of the day, that's what video games are. They're a business. You got to keep the lights on. You got to make sure that the company still runs. You got to make sure you can put that next game out. And costs go up, so therefore you need to find new ways to do it. But the thing is, the biggest problem I have today is a lot of companies are doing this. EA is probably one of the biggest gigantic culprits of this.
Yeah, they are.
Cutting content to only reintroduce it as paid DLC or a paid extra or something down the line. That is dirty business. You know, we've had... There's nothing stopping them from putting out the same game with the same style of characters or something. Say, like, look at Battlefront 2, for example. How much of that game was left out specifically because they wanted to bring it in as DLC later? At least 50% of the game or more.
That game was notorious for their DLC, how they functioned. Battlefront was a laughingstock. And that's what got EA under the gun. That's what put EA in the crosshair of every major game journalist. And everybody, pretty much everybody, they were like, why did you do this? And that's exactly why that game failed. Because of the DLC. And nobody wanted it.
And then you take a look at, like, okay, Dead or Alive. Yeah, we were just complaining about, you know, $400 American worth of DLC. But the thing is, that was all new DLC. And it was optional. There was a difference. Whereas games, going back again, keeping it specifically to fighting games, since we started it, that was the main point. Looking again at Street Fighter and now Tekken, they're bringing in old characters because the fans want them, where you know for a fact they probably had them sitting on the sidelines since day one, and they were like, okay, who can we cut to make a quick buck later on?
I mean, all DLC is optional. I have not seen a mandatory DLC yet.
To a degree, it depends on the genre. Fighting games, if you want to be a competitive player and you want to play online, you're gonna have to pick up those DLC packs. You know, you have to keep the characters up to date. You have to make sure that you've got access to the characters if you want to learn how to counter them. You know, for fighting games, those packs are not really as optional as people believe them to be.
And fighting games can do it also.
No problem.
They could do it. I always thought about that. I was like, okay, they could easily give you access to those characters that are DLC, but don't let you play them, let you fight against them, have an AI fight against them, make them non-playable characters. Why hasn't anybody done that yet?
Because it's easier just to wall them off behind a paywall.
But see, just a simple thought from a simple mind. But yeah, I mean, I think we've gone on long enough for DLC. I think we all have our opinions on it. We all think that it's bad, but at the same time, it can be good when it's done correctly. I think everybody should get out of the habit of calling DLC or grouping everything in DLC, because not all DLC is microtransactions. There are free DLC, and DLC is a good thing. It can be embraced when it's done properly. Not microtransactions.
Hi, Capcom. You've gone from being one of the worst DLC makers to one of the best. Thank you for my free Resident Evil stuff.
Yeah, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for Ghost Survivors.
Ghost Survivors plus more costumes for free.
No, give us more.
They even did that with Resident Evil 7. They had an entire scenario that was free. Sure, you had to buy another two packs later on, but they still gave you at least some free DLC. And I think the better ones that are done, especially like just to wrap up, like the better ended on a positive note. Let's put it that way. I always thought that the DLC for the first two Batman games, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, brilliant because they were stories. Yeah, you had to pay for them in the season pass and all that stuff, but they were like little additions to the story, and they worked so well with the overall narrative. And I think that's when DLC works best, when it's additional content that adds to the overall experience of the game. Whereas a lot of companies now aren't doing so much additional to the game; they're just doing little bits and pieces of costuming or a new weapon skin or something along those lines. Go fuck yourself, Fortnite. For all the kids that, and that's a big thing. It's a generation of kids. My little brother is one of them. My little brother is 15 years old, turning 16 this year, and he's grown up in a world where DLC is the norm. I tried to explain to him what an expansion pack was one day, and he looked like he sort of went, "Wait, I don't understand this at all." And that's what DLC was to us back in the day. It was an expansion pack, and it was literally additional story, additional scenarios, additional characters, additional costumes. And you paid maybe $20 less than you did the standard game. But he's grown up in a world where Fortnite exists, and if you want something, you're going to spend $20 or $30 on V-Bucks to unlock 2 or 3 costumes. And that's normal to him. I think it's just we're getting old, Keith.
It's not that we're getting old. Times have changed. You got to remember, a lot of the mentality from us when we were growing up also stemmed from arcades. Like the unlocking of costumes and stuff. That came from the arcades. Time characters. Tekken was awesome with that. You played it for a certain amount of time, you unlocked a new character. And fighting games carried that over to the consoles for a time until DLC came out. You know, back in the day, there was, like we said, Street Fighter. There was no DLC. You wanted a new version of Street Fighter, or you wanted those new characters, Street Fighter, that didn't do anything but change some of the music, add a couple extra stages, and give you new characters. You bought the game. So we still had DLC. It just wasn't downloadable. We had expansions. We had to pay, but I paid more for them. It's just the method has changed, and there's more of it out there. Gaming is completely changed from when we were younger. I mean, look at it. And it does sound like I'm old now. I hate this. We had Super Nintendo, and the Genesis, the Nintendo Entertainment System. But now look at everything we have. The online systems, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Steam, GOG, Origin. Everything is at your fingertips. And companies are taking advantage of that. They know that they can get away with it. The greedy ones. Yeah, we're old. But the industry is changing. That's my 2 cents.
And that brings us to our main topic tonight, because one company is looking to turn back time, but not really turn back time. They're trying to take something old and bring it into the 2019-2020 era. Of course, I'm talking about Visionary Realms and their new upcoming MMORPG, Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. And you actually were the one who actually turned me on to this, Keith, because at the time I was getting really soured on World of Warcraft. The end of Legion was just another 6 to 8 month stale fest, and I was getting really bored. I wasn't sure if I was going to come back for Battle for Azeroth, and when I did, it was Legion 2.0. We had this conversation on the last podcast, and I ended up quitting. Did. Yeah, we ended up quitting, or actually, all of us ended up quitting World of Warcraft for good. And, you know, I'm going to say that ever since day one of World of Warcraft, I honestly hadn't felt right about the game. And that's because before World of Warcraft, I played another game called EverQuest for 4 years. And I had such an amazing time in that game that the only reason why I left is because all my real life friends came to World of Warcraft. They wanted me to come with them. So I took 4 years of my life and said goodbye, sold my account, and then I joined Blizzard, and the rest was history for the last 14 years. But EverQuest was a harder MMO to grasp because you didn't have a lot of hand-holding like you do in modern-day MMOs. It's not just World of Warcraft. I mean, there's a lot of MMOs like, you know, Ion that came out, and Rift, and, you know, all these other ones that tried to emulate World of Warcraft. and make it easy for casual players. But EverQuest wasn't like that. You got what you wanted out of the game versus the time you put into it. And, if you died, you didn't, pop up in the spirit realm. You actually you popped up back in the real world alive with no gear, and you had to run back to your corpse at the risk of dying again to loot your corpse, and you had 7 days to do it. Otherwise, everything on your corpse just rots. Gear, money, everything.
That sucks. That's terrible.
It sucks. It's terrible, but it built community because now you can actually go back to your corpse yourself, or if you died in a very precarious spot, you could actually just, send a whisper to someone else in the area. Says, hey, do you mind if you could help me a second? I need to get my corpse. Or you just pay a rogue to go stealth and the corpse drag it, out of a cave or something. But it got you talking to other people, and believe it or not, friendships actually form that way. Yes, kids, MMOs used to be social. You actually used to have to talk to people in order to accomplish things. You actually had to group with people in order to accomplish things.
Whoa! You mean I can't wait? You mean I didn't have to go to Baron and just troll people or looking for group and not talk the entire encounter? I actually had to talk to people.
Yeah, because believe it or not, if you pulled more than 3 mobs, you're probably going to wipe as a group because shit was hard. It wasn't like, oh, all right, guys, let's pull the whole room of 50 mobs here. AoE, get a little sparkly loots and go on and kill the boss. No, it wasn't like that. It was, you pulled 2 things, you CC'd one of them, because if you didn't, you were dead. It was that difficult back then. It really made you pay attention. It made you coordinate with your groups. And back then when I played, there was no TeamSpeak. It was just on the verge of coming out. No Ventrilo, no Discord. You basically had to do everything in a chat window. And yes, I used to raid lead 72-person raids with nothing but macros in a chat window. If you want to talk about hardcore.
You sound old.
I am old. What do you want me to say? I'm a fucking fossil over here. So I missed that gameplay. And another thing that I really missed was the fear of death. When you died in EverQuest, not only did you have to go back and get your corpse, you lost experience too. And yes, if you lost enough, you could de-level. That means you had to make friends with a cleric with their epic weapon, which they could use, I think, every 72 minutes to resurrect one person with 100% EXP recovery. Otherwise, you settle for the 96 EXP recovery res that they have at their fingertips. And that's how you got your experience back. But if you got killed over and over again, which happened a lot in that game, you started noticing a deficit. So you'd have to go back and continue to farm more mobs to get, your experience back. But you also had the alternate advancement experience too, where if your experience bar was full or was at a happy medium, you could easily switch it over to AA experience and then get permanent talent points to put into your character, which increase like your run speed, your innate strength, your innate magic, give you brand new abilities, got you class mounts, and they were non-refundable because they were permanent. They were permanent enhancements to your character to give you a sense of progression. It's not like, oops, well, I picked that talent incorrectly. Let me just go to a vendor and re-roll it for gold and try again. No, because everything had meaning. Everything had a purpose, and there was no wrong choice. Only thing was you had to decide what you wanted to go for first. And
you know what, Josh? I'm listening to you, and I apologize. You sound really sour right now. I can't really help but think that WoW has hurt you some way.
It did, because when I went to World of Warcraft, I mean, skipping all the EverQuest memories aside here, I got to the end game, and I was so used to getting AA experience. I was so used to progressing my character beyond max level and unlocking new abilities and new spells beyond the max level, that when I killed something the first time at level 60 and all I got was some silver off of the corpse, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't get any experience? Didn't I at least get reputation with something? What do I get? And my friend Keith, whose also name was Keith, by the way, he went, well, you got some silver, right? I'm like, yeah, but what else do I get? Well, that's it. Then why am I killing shit? What's the point of killing stuff here? I was that was the beginning of like me questioning whether or not I belonged in World of Warcraft. And yet 14 years later, I made friends in the game and whatever. I felt it was too late to go back to EverQuest because they were pumping out expansions left and right. And I know how long it took to get through an expansion. I didn't want to spend years trying to get caught up. Or I don't know if it would actually, take me years, but still, I just wanted to play something new. And the longer World of Warcraft went on, the more I saw it become casualized. I saw Activision. I know we're going back to this conversation again, but I saw them dip their fingers into it. I saw, everything that made an MMO great get taken out of the MMO. Like, there's no community in World of Warcraft. I mean, Group Finder and Raid Finder just put you in there with a whole bunch of random people. You didn't even have to walk to the dungeon. You just simply went there and pushed a button and boom, you're in a group. And no one talked to each other. Everything was like super casualized where you could basically do the fight with your eyes closed. There was no challenge. And no one talked to each other. That was the biggest thing. In EverQuest, you had to talk to people. I could actually go back 15 years and remember the names of the people in every single guild that was on my server. I mean, I was on a PvP server, so you had to. And I can't remember anyone that I grouped with in World of Warcraft outside of people of my guild. I mean, that is how like black and white the communities are in both of those games. So Pantheon is looking to bring that back. They're looking to bring the old school MMO style back. They're bringing that EverQuest feel back. And of course, I mean, Brad McQuaid, who was at the helm of EverQuest, is actually on Visionary Realms and also heading up this project. So that says a lot. And they want to bring that whole sense of community back. I mean, their hashtag on Twitter is Community Matters. So they're bringing the corpse runs back. They're bringing the EXP penalty back. They're bringing the tough mobs back where you have to CC them. You can't just run in and AoE everything down. You have to pay attention. There's going to be no quest givers in the world with exclamation points over their heads. You actually have to hail the NPCs, talk to them, read their stories, say certain keywords, get invested in the world, go out, explore. They have this new thing called the perception system where certain classes can actually discover things as you're walking around that will actually trigger quests just by some clues that pop up on the screen. And they're bringing that sense of adventure back. They don't want you sitting in a hometown, waiting for your cue to pop. They want you out in the world and just looking around, exploring, discovering new things, getting into adventures, finding quests, finding gear that matters. And I've missed that about MMOs so much that's why I'm really looking forward to this game. And of course, they're doing some new things to really bring this into the I guess like the new era of MMOs. As you know, Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch had like the weather climate system. They're actually doing something similar to that, since the world terminus is kind of like a conglomerate of different worlds that broke apart and all formed this one central spot. It became like a nexus of worlds. So every piece of the world is going to have its own atmosphere. Some of them might disable spells, and you actually have to have a certain piece of gear which will re-enable spells. Some of them, might put a curse on you, where if you might suffer like undead effects, but if you're an undead character, you actually end up getting buffed if you're in that type of zone. So it's actually a pretty cool system that they're implementing. But I could go on and on. So as someone who's played World of Warcraft, Keith and Carl, like, does something like that sound, appealing to you? Because I'm kind of interested. Like, I'm an old school MMO guy. So for people who played like a more casual MMO, does something like that in a hardcore level seem like it's something you'd play?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you, because World of Warcraft, like I said before, was my real first MMO. I mean, I played other ones, but I really didn't stick to them for a long period of time. Some of the things you talked about do sound appealing, but at the same time, it's like, it sounds a little bit, like you mentioned, possibly hardcore, but we really won't know until the game comes out and we give it a try. I will say I didn't like the fact that WoW started catering to casuals. That's one of the big reasons why I stopped playing it completely. And as you were talking, last time we talked about this, I said I was going to go back and look at my last time I paid for the game. Well, today I just did that. It was back in 2016, September 2016. So I haven't been playing since then, or my subscription ran out then. So it's been over 2 years. But getting back to Pantheon, I've been reading a lot about it, and I've been looking at some of the videos and people talking about the game, and it does sound interesting. I'm looking at it more as a cautious because I think I'm pretty much burnt out from MMOs. But then again, I'm burnt out from WoW. If there's actually a game that takes what WoW did really good, but puts back in social aspects and makes playing the game actually fun and worthwhile, I have to work for it, then yeah, it's something I would be interested in.
Okay, how about you, Carl?
To be honest, I think a lot of this has to do with more my own personal schedule these days. I don't have the time to do what the time sink is for an online MMO anymore. So I don't know, I might, if Pantheon launches with like sort of a preview or like a what do they call it? So like a trial thing like WoW does, where you got like the first 20 levels or 10 levels or something for free. I'll give it a look at to see if it is worth trying to do a little bit of a time sink. But at this point in time, I think I'm well and truly done with MMOs. I can't, with everything else that we do here at the Outerhaven, I've got anime reviews I've got to do, I've got game reviews I got to do. I don't have as much time anymore to sink into an MMO that's going to require me to like play for 5-10 hours a day or something like that. If it's a quick short bursts, then sure, we'll give it a go. If it needs a real deep time sink, I'll have to just stay MMO free from now on.
Yeah, this definitely sounds like a game where it will kind of be a time sink. They did actually talk about that a few times in some interviews, and I believe they might have actually answered it in their FAQ section, like, what kind of time sink are we looking for here? And they understand that, the community that was playing EverQuest, 15, 20 years ago has grown up. We have families, we have jobs, we have responsibilities. So they understand that we're not, fresh out of high school and 16-year-old kids with abundance of time on our hands anymore. So they're keeping that in mind. But it's going to probably require more play time than a typical WoW session, but probably less play time than what you did find back in EverQuest or Ultima Online or Asheron's Call or some of those older MMOs. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see where they kind of hit the mark with that. I know things in this game are a lot slower. I know Blizzard and Ian Hazzikostas, the game director of WoW, have said numerous times that they kind of feel that WoW is a fast-paced game, kind of like an arcade-style MMO in that aspect, because everything is just so reactionary, where in Pantheon, it's really actually not like that. It's like you have to manage your resources during a fight. I mean, in World of Warcraft, as like a healer, you're used to spamming like Flash of Light and not running out of mana. Well, here, if you spam your quick heals, you're going to be out of mana really quick. So you have to really watch and see what happens, and you have to make decisions on the fly as to what spells to use. And part of that is like your tank doing their job. Are they using the right mitigation at the right time? Is your party CCing at the right time to, avoid extra damage? So it's kind of like a more of a slower paced, methodical, strategic approach where you have to really think in the middle of combat, and the combat itself isn't super fast. I mean, yeah, sometimes you might have some front loaded damage on an enemy you have to react to, but you typically know when it's going to come, and you get that time to breathe and just look. And as a matter of fact, there's actually videos of people sitting down and meditating to get their mana back in the middle of a fight.
What?
So, I mean, that's how slow the combat is. Mobs have a lot of extra health that you would normally see on a regular MMO. So it takes a little bit longer to kill them. But at that time, you're also figuring out how to deal with each type of enemy, because one enemy you pull might be different from the other and might have to be dealt with in a certain way. So it's really cool that they've done that, because it gives that old school vibe, because that's how EverQuest was. You pulled a Babonian war rat in the Crypt of Decay, and it took a little bit to beat him down, but it functioned a lot differently than possibly pulling something in, I don't know, the Plane of Hate or something. So everything has its own flavor to it. Everything is going to make you think, make you make different type of gear choices, because it's not going to be like what's your best in slot gear and you have to go after it. Every piece of gear is going to matter. They even talked about having like iconic pieces of gear. Like if I said the word J boots, anyone who played EverQuest would automatically know I'm talking about the Journeyman's boots, where you right click them to give you the Spirit of Wolf buff. If I said the AON neck from Plane of Fear, everyone on the PvP server would know that's like a god tier item, where any other server is like some sort of cheap cosmetic item. COS, like Circle of Shadows. I can name like pieces of gear off the top of my head from EverQuest that I haven't touched in over a decade and a half. I can't do that with World of Warcraft. Like I can't remember like fuzzy dice boots of the Gladiator or some bullshit that they come out with like every patch.
Thunderlord.
Oh, obviously legendary weapons are an exception, Keith. I mean,
Did
everyone
you say
knows Thunderlord.
Did you say Wind Fury? I got an Ashbringer over here.
Right?
Never did get my Ashbringer. Fucking Blizzard.
That's because you didn't play Legion long enough.
No, I'm done. I'm so done.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's that type of mentality. It's like pieces of gear are going to mean something. It's not like, oh, I have this breastplate that I need to get because it has the best stats for me. Well, that might be true, but this breastplate might not work in a climate that you need another breastplate for. It might not have, this certain effect on it that you need to counteract a certain type of encounter. I mean, different bosses might do different abilities, and you might need different gear, like almost like classic WoW, where you have to actually have resist gear and resist pots to go into, Molten Core. So they're trying to bring that aspect back. Yeah.
Oh,
that's something I haven't heard in a while, and I really used to like back in the day. You want to go and run, what was it, Molten Core or something like that? You better get your ass attuned. You want to go fight it next year? You better get that fucking fire resistant gear, or else you're fucked.
Yeah, you want to go do Encourage? Well, guess what? You better get that nature resist gear, or Princess Hookeran's going to fuck you up.
I still haven't got my faster because it's red mount.
I had that for years. Sorry, I actually got it in my first run through there. You're going to hate me.
Yeah, there is a certain amount of fuck you in that sentence.
Yeah, I had it coming. But yeah, I'm really excited for Pantheon. I mean, I really want that sense of community back. I want that hardcore feel back, and I really want to go into a game where I don't sit in a main city because the rest of my guild is offline because they are bored to death. I want to actually come on to a guild, ready to party up, go out, kill some shit, gain some experience, learn about the world, learn about the lore through interacting with it, and not going to like a Wowpedia website. It's just that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I missed EverQuest so much that I could have gone back to it, but I would have had to start all over again, and the thought of going back and playing something that I've already played isn't really all that appealing, because unless it's like a really, really good game that has a high replay value, I won't go back and play it. And while EverQuest was an amazing game, it's the fact that I would have to go through every piece of content all over again, and now we are 20 years deep into EverQuest. That's a lot of content, and I know there's catch-up systems, I know there's all this stuff, but to me, I don't think I would have the same experience that I once did. So I would look for something that's like EverQuest that's updated for today, and that's exactly what, in my opinion, Pantheon is. So that's why I'm super excited for this game.
So let's switch gears and talk about Pantheon as far as release date. I know they're in pre-alpha right now, is it?
Yeah.
So what are they looking at as far as an actual release date? Or when can people that haven't contributed to the game actually get their hands on the game? Beta, alpha, whenever.
Well, the thing is, it was supposed to have been out, the alpha, that is, back in, I guess, late 2018. But they recently shifted focus, and they're now doing something called Project Fairthale. And what that is Fairthale is one of the zones in the game, and they're making it so that every system that's ready for testing is going to be up and running in Fairthale. So they want that one zone to be kind of like the blueprint for the rest of the game when they start fleshing out zones. So they want to make sure that when people test that one zone, that everything in the game, from the perception system, the climate system, boss encounters, crafting, things of that nature. Like everything you can find in the base game is going to be in there ready to test. So it's a huge undertaking. So because of that, they've kind of shifted back the alpha and beta, and they've added another pre-alpha. There will be a pre-alpha 5 possibly this year, but they stated over and over again that they changed focus on how they wanted to present the game because they wanted a more complete experience for alpha than what they were originally offering. They didn't want people to come in with features missing or, something broken. So they're actually working to put out a higher quality product for people to test, which is, for an alpha, that's really ambitious because, alphas are known for like, oh, this building's not even painted yet, or I just fell through the floor because there's no collision detection. Oh, that quest can't be completed because it's completely bugged. And
door placeholders and things like that we've seen all over WoW.
Yeah. So they're trying to present a different type of alpha experience, and it's kudos to them for taking the time to make it polished and to make sure as much of the game is in play as possible for when they actually launch that alpha. So they did say Project Fairtale will take a lot longer than a normal content update. So I don't know when we'll see alpha or beta. Only Brad McQuaid and Chris Perkins and all the other developers over there may know the answer to that, but they're not saying right now. I just know that they're working on this Project Fairtale thing to get as much implemented into that one zone. And then they're probably going to do a pre-alpha 5 to test that out and make sure everything is working before they start moving on to an alpha phase.
All right, so Visionary Realms, where do these developers, where do these people come from? Because some of them are from the original Warcraft of EverQuest. They worked on that. Where's the team comprised of? What is their experience with MMOs in general?
It's a very deeply rooted team. I mean, Brad McQuaid, like I said, is pretty much an icon in the industry. I mean, he helmed EverQuest. Now he's working with Visionary Realms to do Pantheon. They just hired the community manager that used to work with EverQuest on their team. Of course, they got Chris Perkins, Jared Pullen, Will Berry, and a whole bunch of other different artists that are coming on board. And not a lot of them are from that old school period. I mean, obviously, we've seen the layoffs happening in the game industry, and they're inviting some of these talented people to come work for Visionary Realms, and they're collecting, all these different types of, high-level artists to come work on it. They just actually got a brand new animator on board that's looking to update and redo all of the animation because essentially in some of the pre-alphas, people are like, well, these animations kind of look clunky. They don't look like, something you expect out of a current gen MMO. And they wholeheartedly agreed. So they got a new guy working there that's going to be, redoing all of the rigging and the different types of character animations, spell animations, even the environment animations, and bring it into a more modern look. So it's really it's not, you can't really say everything everybody that's on that team is from EverQuest. I mean, it's only a couple of people. It's mainly the mindset of bringing that style of game back. But the team is just like a huge melting pot of different type of talent from many different companies and industries that are coming together for this.
All right, fair enough. Sounds like you're very interested in this game. You're very committed. You even helped contribute to the game.
I did. I started off with a $250 pledge, and then when I had the extra money, I threw an extra $50, going up to the $300 pledge, which gets you invite to the Founders Guild. Which I'm not sure exactly what that is. It's not. I think it's not going to be an actual guild like you're thinking of. It's probably, they've rumored it to be maybe a special area that founders can access in the game and no one else can or something. But I know I'm getting 2 digital copies of the game. When regular alpha and beta launch, I'll have access to play those. You get some renaming vouchers, guaranteed character name reservation, and a whole bunch of cool perks. I mean, there's a whole different types of level of pledges. You don't have to donate hundreds of dollars. I mean, they have a $50 pledge, which will get you, at least the base game and a couple of perks with it. Or you can go nuts and go up to $10,000 and actually help them design an entire dungeon. So,
Sure. That's actually pretty cool. What if they got other developers who wanted to pitch in and actually contribute and actually make a dungeon? That's actually interesting.
I don't know about developers, but I do know they're not completely crowdfunded. I mean, crowdfunding does help them out, but they also do have like angel investors and things of that nature helping them out financially as well. And because of those investments, they've actually been able to hire more people, which does indeed, speed up the process and gets them closer to alpha a lot sooner.
And we just don't have an idea of when exactly this is going to release. It's not going to be another Star Citizen, is it? I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but
no, I would highly doubt that.
So mad I gave money to Star Citizen. I'm never going to see the benefits from that. God, Chris Roberts and them. All right, well, I think that's the last topic for today's show, guys. I'm tapped. I have nothing else that I want to talk about, complain about, think about. Yeah, I'm done. My head hurts. Carl?
Yeah. Final thoughts, sir?
I'm good.
Final thoughts. Dead or Alive 6 is actually a lot of fun. If you like fighting games, give it a try. Don't be put off by the tits and ass, because that is Dead or Alive, and it's not really that bad. Upcoming games for this month that I'm looking forward to: Devil May Cry 5 and Seriko, Shadows Die Twice. Why do I not say that name properly? I've heard two different types of pronunciation for that game. And other than that, again, if you don't hear from me next week, I died.
Yeah, rest in pepperonis, my friend. Rest in pepperonis.
I don't really like pepperonis.
Wow, that is blasphemy. Pepperoni is like God tier, man.
It's always eat pepperoni. I'm so tired of it now.
How can you get tired of pepperoni? I don't even want to talk to you anymore.
I just don't like it anymore, man. Okay? I just don't like it. It's sausage.
God.
Sausage is where it's at.
Sacrilege, dude. Sacrilege. Anyway, my final thoughts. Hashtag trust in Pantheon. Hashtag community matters. That's all I got to say. So, ladies and gentlemen, and others, I'm JJ Piedra for Keith, long-ass list of names, Mitchell, and Carl Smart. I'm going to say Godspeed to all you out there in Radio Land. Peace.
Good night. Sleep tight.